Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and I'm very excited to bring you guys my impressions and my thoughts of what I was able to play over the weekend of the Halo 5 Guardians multiplayer beta. So this was sort of an early access event, about a week before the actual beta goes live. For those members who, for those of us who are members of the Xbox Live dashboard preview program. So I was just really happy and excited that I was going to get to play the beta, in general. And then when I found out, hey, you're going to get to play it a couple weeks early, I was like, yes, I'm down for that. Let's see what you have, 343, bring it. So I sat down as any respectable Halo veteran would, somebody who's been playing Halo since the days of the original. It was one of my first-person shooters that I played on a console, and it ended up being a huge part of my life for a very long time. So I consider myself a hardened Halo vet, which meant that I knew I was going to go in not only being pretty excited for the game, but also attempting to be its harshest critic and, really ready to be disappointed, in fact. Let's be honest. Halo 4 was a good attempt at a Halo game. I understand it was 343's first foray into making a Halo game, and I wasn't disappointed with it, but there are a lot of elements of it that I didn't appreciate. And today, of course, we're here to talk only about the multiplayer. And in terms of multiplayer, Halo 4 wasn't the strongest outing for Halo's multiplayer. I liked it, I thought it did some cool things, but at the end of the day, it just didn't feel like it stuck to the formula that made Halo's multiplayer component so successful over the years. So that's really some of the things that I was going to sit down and mentally say to myself when I finally started to play Guardians, was to, sort of have a checkbox in my head. What have they done? What have they decided not to do? Of course, we already knew quite a bit of information about the multiplayer component of Guardians. We knew that they were sort of going back to Halo's roots. No more weapon, loadouts. Everything is on the map, power weapon locations, just like the good old days. And that's definitely what they brought to Guardians. And it's one of the most noticeable things almost immediately is that everyone is spawning with the same sort of weapon, and power weapons are back. It was just power weapons. When they took that out of Halo 4, they didn't understand what they were doing. Because the existence of power weapons and weapons placed on the map, it helps control combat flow. They are very important tools to what made Halo's multiplayer component so successful over the years. And when they took those out, I was like, what are you doing? Are you mad, man? Are you mad? So it's good to know that they've gained some of their sanity. They spent a couple days in an insane asylum, and someone finally explained to them their error of their ways, or they explained to themselves through the error of their ways, and they realized, hey, we should put weapons on the map. It's a good thing. So really happy that that is back, and we'll talk a little bit more about some details with how they've decided to do that, actually, because there's some small tweaks that make a lot of sense later in the video. So this is going to be a pretty lengthy video. I have a lot I want to talk about. I'm going to try not to ramble too much. I'm going to try not to sound too excited, because to be honest, I actually found it very hard with the 6 hours that I spent playing the Guardians beta over the weekend to find any big negatives. In fact, the two negatives that I have are really tiny, pathetic ones, and we'll talk about those later as well. But I wanted to go ahead and preface this entire thing, because I know the biggest issue that a lot of people are having is when they're seeing things like the new ability system, they're seeing things like the smart scope, and just the way the game sort of functions, and the way that you finally, in my opinion, feel like a proper super soldier as an issue. Of course, that's just the way the world works. You make the game the exact same as it was the year before, everybody gets pissed off. You make changes, everyone gets pissed off. So you're never going to please everyone, but I'd like to think, of course, that that is the vocal minority. On the other hand, I'd like to hope that I'm a small member of the vocal majority, or the non-vocal majority, who's now being vocal, who's going to speak positively about the positive things that I found in the Halo 5 Guardians multiplayer beta. So, first things first, as I said, I want to preface this by quickly describing why the Spartans are pretty freaking hardcore people, female or male. They don't mess around. There's a good reason, going back to the days of the old Spartan program. A little bit of a history lesson for those of you who don't know your Halo lore. Now, back when Master Chief, as everyone knows Master Chief, Spartan 117, was becoming a Spartan, to start off, he was 5 years old. He was pretty much kidnapped by the UNSC and replaced with a clone, and then put into the Spartan training program immediately. Now, around late teenage years, the UNSC was doing testing on the Mjolnir armor that the Spartans would soon be wearing. And they were testing it on ODSTs, who... ODSTs, they don't mess around, man. They're pretty badass, right? Sad thing about that was that the ODSTs were not strong enough, as strong as they may be, to actually control the Mjolnir armor, and it was breaking all of their bones. Imagine putting on a suit of armor and then trying to move your arm and tearing your arm completely out of the socket, flesh and all. That's pretty much what was happening. So that was when the UNSC decided, hey, we have to go ahead and actually augment these people if we want to make them into Spartans. It's the only way they're going to be able to wear the Mjolnir armor. So the Spartans went through an augmentation process. A lot of them died. A lot of them lived, and they were able to wear the Spartan armor. Therefore, when you think of the Spartan armor, after hearing that story, it should probably be pretty freaking awesome. It should have the ability to do things like thrust, sprint, punch the crap out of people. I've always felt that way about the Spartan armor, and it never made sense to me that the game didn't have it, because I always read the lore, and the more I learned about the Spartans, the more I was just like, why does their armor seem so pathetic in-game? Like, it doesn't do anything. And it was sort of always kind of balanced out in my head because it was Spartan versus Spartans. You know, like, oh, well, they're both badass, right? But you never quite felt like a Spartan in past Halo games. I felt like Halo 4 was actually a step in the right direction, you know, sort of expanding on the abilities that Bungie had introduced in Halo Reach, but it still never quite made it to that jet fighter on two legs thing that 343 talked about so frequently when they were designing Halo 4. Now, in my opinion, Halo 5 has finally nailed that whole feel, the whole jet fighter on two legs, because I have sort of a vision in my head for how a Spartan should feel and how they should be able to function. Number one, they obviously should be hefty. Spartan armor is heavy, it's not lightweight stuff, but at the same time, a Spartan should be quick, powerful, and agile while remaining hefty, you know, while being sort of that burliness, you know, their armor is not light. And I feel like they finally have nailed that with Guardians, because you feel extremely agile. The new clamber mechanic, which allows you to climb up on ledges that you're seeing right here, it's not a clunky mechanic. I mean, it is quick and efficient. As a Spartan, you can sort of sprint, clamber, and immediately start engaging a target. I think you'll actually see in this clip here on Empire that I'm running with a sniper rifle at one point, and I just get this perfect clamber snapshot, and I haven't felt anything so satisfying in a Halo game, let alone an FPS, in a very long time. It's a great mechanic, and it just sort of adds to that trio of things I talked about, you know, agility, power, and heft. It all clicks together so well with the way they design the move mechanics and just the overall feel of the Spartans combined with the abilities in Guardians. I'm really genuinely impressed with it. So while we're on the subject of the abilities, let's talk a little bit about them. So we have a couple of new abilities that every Spartan now has. There's no more, you know, singular set armor ability like Halo 5 and Halo Reach. Every Spartan can sprint. Every Spartan has a thruster pack that they can use to thrust forward, backwards, sideways, and also across gaps if they choose to do so. That same thruster pack can also be used to do a Spartan shoulder charge as well as a ground pound, which is what you saw at the very beginning of this video. So I want to talk a little bit about these mechanics, because I think when you just say them straight out, people start to get concerned about whether or not they can be abused. And really, 343 has designed each of these individual elements of the Spartan's armor very carefully. They obviously haven't just thrown it in here. The biggest thing is sprinting. You can sprint indefinitely, but the important thing to note is that you cannot recharge your shields while sprinting. I mean, that right there just requires a little bit more of a thought process when you actually start to engage in a sprint. What it means is that you can sprint around the map and you can get to targets as quickly as possible, but don't expect to just be able to sprint out of battle like it's, you know, like it's no big deal. I mean, if your shields are down and you get tagged by, everybody knows, you know, once your shields are down, one headshot from a Magnum, or maybe two, I'm not sure, actually, haven't really been able to test that just yet, but things like the DMR and the BR, or a body shot from a sniper, once your shields are down, that's game over, you know, you gotta be really careful about that. So you have to focus on, you know, do I let my shields recharge? Do I sprint out and let them recharge somewhere else? Just a really smart piece of gameplay design. I really like what they did with the sprint mechanic and how that and the shields all balance out. Now, the other aspect of things, of course, is the ability to strafe, to use the thruster pack to dodge, and the ground pound and the shoulder charge. Now, the ground pound and the shoulder charge on their own probably sound like pretty overpowered abilities, and when I first heard them say that those were going to be two components in the game, I started thinking Destiny with the frickin' Titans. The Titan's shoulder charge ability on the Striker class is so overpowered, I can't even believe they let it be in the game. It's a guaranteed kill. There's no other way around it, really. I mean, it's almost impossible to survive that thing. Luckily, it's not the same in the case of 343 with Guardians when it comes to the ground pound and the Spartan shoulder charge. Neither of these are guaranteed instant kills. However, the ground pound is But the sort of way that they've balanced that is that it requires a ton of precision. You can't just expect to get an AoE damage kill with this thing. You have to actually land a direct hit. Pretty much if you're not hitting another Spartan directly in the face, you're not going to kill him with the ground pound. It's a very difficult tool to use, and which is why you very rarely see someone actually land a kill with it. Not to mention, in order to actually use it, you have to jump into the air, leave yourself hanging for a good 3 or 4 seconds, and then you can actually deploy it. So it does leave you exposed to enemy fire for quite a good chunk of time. The thruster pack as well is not an infinite thing. You can't just spam it, you can't rapidly deploy it. Basically, you deploy your thruster pack, it has a small cooldown, then you can deploy it again. You will not be chaining together thruster pack maneuvers similar to what people can do in Advanced Warfare. It's not the same system at all. So when 343 introduced all of these new mechanics to the Spartans and said, hey, everyone's going to have these, they obviously thought about it, for quite some time, because I couldn't help but feel like they were just really, really well balanced. So that's probably the biggest comfort for me when I played the beta, was that all of those elements were really well thought out and balanced. None of them felt overpowered or like they were just going to constantly be overused. They all feel really, really great. So that was nice to see. Now, there's a lot we can talk about with what I played in the beta. Despite the fact that there were only 2 maps and both of them were sort of what they're calling Arena Slayer Classic 4v4, there's some just really smart design changes that have been brought to the game apart from the new gameplay mechanics. The first being what I already talked about, how weapons are now on the map. Now, one of the things they've done with the power weapons, though, is that there's actually a timer that is in-game now. Back in the days of like Halo 2, the way it would work when you played Halo competitively, something like an MLG team or something like that, is that your coach would keep track of the power weapon respawn time, and he would actually speak it out to his team. He'd say, hey, 30 seconds till sniper, guys, 30 seconds till rocket, 10 seconds till rocket, however they decided to do their timing. Now the game actually tells everyone in-game that there is a power weapon about to spawn on the map, and it tells you what weapon it is. There's actually a holograph that is deployed on the map where that weapon used to be, and you get a countdown timer. So now the game goes and announces 30 seconds to sniper, 30 seconds to Prophet's Bane, 30 seconds to rocket launcher. What that does is it removes an unnecessary element. You no longer have to have someone counting to figure out when a weapon is actually going to spawn. The second side effect is that it helps put people who are playing in a public match, in a more competitive setting. Normally in something like, public matches for Halo, you're not really going to have too many teams that are actually like sitting there with a stopwatch like, alright guys, 30 seconds to sniper respawn, let's do this. Those guys are probably playing some sort of competitive game battles or MLG. Now though, you've brought it to everyone. Everyone can see that timer, and what that does is it helps push the combat flow on the map. It helps, keep the game alive. You don't have these moments where everyone's sort of camped out on one side of the map. And if they are, they're abandoning a power weapon, simply put. But I just thought the timer was a really smart piece of design. It helps, one of the big design philosophies it seems like 343 has took with this is, what can we do to bring Halo back to as much of a skill-based level as possible? Let's remove all of the extra additions that we added with Halo 4, and anything that was added in Reach even, that took away from a player's skill-driven experience. How can we bring the focus back to player skill? It's what League of Legends actually does very well, is they strip a lot of unnecessary things out. Do we really need couriers? No. Do we really need the ability to buy back in? No. Let's just try and make this as skill-focused as possible. That's why they started adding timers for things like, monster spawns in the jungle. And that seems very much that is what 343 is trying to do with Guardians. And I love that. That is just, yes. Bring it back down to its roots. Make it raw again. I want a game about skill. I'm not here for all the humble mumbo jumbo. That's not what Halo's ever been about. This isn't Call of Duty. This is Halo. And it feels like Halo. And that's really kind of my final word on that there, is a lot of people were genuinely concerned. Oh, are they trying to make it really casual? I understand they're trying to open up an audience. In my opinion, Halo, what I've played of the Halo 5 Guardians multiplayer beta is more alienating than any other Halo I've ever played. All of these new mechanics means that you have to sort of relearn all of this new muscle memory for the controls. It's not an easy game to get back into. And this is somebody who's been playing Halo since the original and probably has more than 10,000 hours put into the entire series. it's taken me a while to get comfortable, and 6 hours in, I'm still not there. I still make mistakes. I still accidentally thrust rather than jump. I still sprint rather than jump. You know, I make mistakes. My muscle memory is still slightly flawed, and I like that. I like that I have to learn, that I have to get comfortable with a new set of controls, and I like the fact that it's not just for some BS reason. You know, it's there because it just makes sense. So, as a whole, really impressed with the beta. I cannot wait to get my hands on the full beta in the coming weeks. We're going to have more maps, more game modes. I'm really excited to see what new elements in terms of the game modes and the maps that 343 is bringing to the table. Of course, in this version, we have what you're seeing right here, which is Truth, which is recreation of Midship. Really big fan favorite. And the other map you saw, which was Empire, which has become one of my favorites, actually. I love that map. And 343 was ballsy enough to put a sniper rifle on it. A lot of people who aren't really diehard Halo are going to be like, that's kind of a small map for a sniper rifle. I'm like, yes. Let's bring on the snapshots, baby. That's what this is about. Let's test the skill of someone who picks up a sniper rifle. Let's not make it an easy thing, you know? This is Halo. I just get that vibe. It's oozing off of Guardians, and that has me really excited. I can't tell you how much I just wanted to keep playing the beta this weekend. In fact, as I'm recording this, there's still a couple hours left in Sunday. The beta sort of drops at midnight. I'll probably be playing it all the way until midnight. Really, really excited for that. Now, there was a couple other things I want to talk about. Two genuine sort of negatives and concerns that I have for the game as it stands. Number one, a little bit of connectivity issue during the beta. Now again, this is beta. I'm hoping that sort of thing will get sorted out, but it's always a concern these days with competitive multiplayer shooters, is can they get the connections right? Now I imagine 343 is going to be running dedicated servers, which will eliminate most of the issues, so hopefully that will all be refined. I have no doubt that they'll try their best, especially after all the issues that they had matchmaking with the Master Chief Collection. Granted, that was sort of a whole different beast. What I played in the beta has me pretty confident that they're going to have you know, some really great netcode and some really great, you know, just server connections running when Guardians does go live. And hey, again, that's what these betas are supposed to be for. I'm really happy they're actually having a beta because it's definitely going to make a difference for the game. The second thing is the kill cam. I know, a lot of people probably love the kill cam, and don't get me wrong, I love the end of game kill cam. It's just a really great way to sort of give bragging rights to that player that finally scores the killing blow for your team, or for the enemy team. That's a nice touch. In combination with the intros and the outros for the Spartans now, it helps add a lot of character to the Spartans. But I'm not sure how I feel about the kill cam in between every single kill during a game. I just don't feel it's necessary, and I feel like it pulls me out of the game a little bit too much. I actually miss the old days of seeing my, you know, my killer actually running around, continuing to wreak havoc, or possibly dying from something like my own grenade. I felt like that was an essential piece of feedback that I was able to receive that has now been taken away from me. But I'll probably, you know, something I'll get used to, and it won't be the end of the world. But yeah, I just don't know how I feel about that. Last thing we can really talk about is the audio and the visual design. I mean, you've probably seen enough of the game now. You watched my gameplay video, you've been watching this for the last 20 minutes. The game looks gorgeous, man. Truth is a wonderful recreation of Midship. There are so many nice effects that I didn't actually get to show off. Maybe I'll make one more video where we sort of, you know, look around the skyline on Empire. There's so much detail going on in the background. So much detail that has been put into these maps. It is really genuinely impressive. And of course, we have the audio. This is, in my opinion, the best sounding Halo that I've ever played. I've only played on 2 maps. Not all the weapons are here. We still have things like the rocket to here, but all of the weapons that I've been able to fire in the beta sound wonderful. So many great small details, all the way down to the sound of the fragmentation grenade bouncing off walls. It's such a distinct sound that it kind of replaces any need for a grenade indicator, because you can hear it. I mean, when you hear that sound, it is so distinct that you just run. You're like, oh, that's a grenade, I'm running. And I love that. I love that you've actually been able to turn something that could have been very difficult to identify, like where's the grenade on the map, you know, without an indicator, into something that is almost instantly identifiable via a sound input. That's great. So I'm really impressed with all the sound in the game. The shield's recharging, just wonderful, you know. They've done a really great job with that. So that's pretty much all I have to say about what I played at the beta. Really looking forward to the full beta in the coming weeks. If you guys have any questions for me, or if there's anything that I didn't talk about that you'd like to hear me talk about, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. and I hope I can see you on the battlefield, Spartan.